appreciate y'all coming out, checking out the stream. Hopefully this is can kind of help you kind of add a different tool to your arsenal. I know kind of when I first started trading, the level 2 really didn't make much sense to me. It was kind of like, I guess, a little bit difficult to read and like how to use it. And I think a lot of it will come down to just active screen time and paying attention to it. And I know that's not really a straightforward, I guess, like answer on, you know, how to like instantly get better using it. But I think if you start adding it, you know, to something that you're watching, as you're watching, you know, price action unfold, I think you'll start to see things that can kind of help your trading, whether it be your entries, your exits, whether you're seeing manipulation on the tape or so forth. So kind of what I'm gonna just go through quickly is, you know, how to use, or like what is level 2 and how to interpret it, basically how to read kind of what that information is showing and what that's telling you. And then there's, you know, level 2 kind of does get a bad rap for a lot of manipulation on the tape. And I think when we see a lot of these like daily gappers and movers, what you'll see is, you know, there can be a lot of that, but then there are a lot of names where it's a lot of algorithmic trading. And but anyways, you know, there's ways to kind of spot that level 2 fuckery. So we'll kind of go over some of that, which is like spoofing, hidden orders, and refreshing orders, and then kind of how you can use that to gauge price action. And then I'll just go over examples on how I use level 2. We'll actually kind of run through examples on TOS on demand, so we can kind of watch some of this unfold, I guess, a little bit live. TOS on demand is a little bit laggy, so it's not going to be as clear cut, but hopefully you'll get the picture. So jumping right into it, this is kind of the layout that I use. My level 2 is down here. This is what TD or Thinkorswim's level 2 looks like. It's going to be different on every broker, but this is more or less what an order book looks like. So kind of your basics of level 2, if nobody's, you know, if you're kind of new to using it, and just like how to interpret it. This is at least on Thinkorswim. Again, it's going to be different on every broker. So, you know, you might want to just pop on a YouTube and then, you know, look up level 2 on your broker if it looks different, but more or less it's going to have that same information. So what you see on level 2 is you have your bid and your ask sides. So your bids are, you know, buyers, your asks are sellers. And just going through each of the columns, EX, that's for exchanges. So these are the exchanges that your orders are being routed through. These are your bids, so basically the price that your buyers are willing to pay for the stock. And then BS stands for buying size. And on Thinkorswim, I don't know if y'all use this or knew this, but these numbers are actually times 100. So this bidder right here is showing actually 2,300 shares, 1,300 shares, 400, and so on. So, you know, it's not 400. So it is a little bit less intuitive, at least on this broker. But that's just a heads up, just in case it's like that on any other broker. I think on TradeStation, it's, you know, just like straight up, it'll show whatever all of this totaled up is. And, you know, on Thinkorswim, what you actually see is on this trade ladder, you'll see all these numbers added up. So like for 203, that shows up here on the bid, you know, it's 5,400, or 54, and that's 54, you know, 100 shares waiting to be filled. And then on this side, if you add, you know, these 204s up, that's 2,600. So I know people that actually use the level 2 on the Thinkorswim active price ladder. The only reason I don't is because sometimes it's a little bit glitchy and you'll actually see these numbers disappear a little bit. And what I do like about the actual level two tool on Thinkorswim is, for me, it just got to be a little bit easier. You see how these different prices are actually different shades of blue. So when you're watching these kind of get filled in real time, you'll start to see these shades of blue start to shift up. And for me, it's just visually easier seeing, either side breakdown, and then watching, for these numbers. And I know people that do the same thing, using the ladder. So really, you can test it out with either and see what works best for you. But this is the actual full level 2 order book tool. And then, again, I went over the bid side, but it's essentially the same thing on your ask side, right? Also, just, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop on the voice and, ask the questions as they come up, and I'll do my best to answer them. Does anybody have any questions so far about, how to actually interpret these numbers? So I kind of want to go over some, what level 2, what you'll kind of see on level 2 sometimes, and I guess how to interpret it if it's, manipulation, more or less. So, one of the things that we can see sometimes is spoofing, and then that's when we see really big orders pop up on either side. And the goal of that, and I'll throw up an example here pretty soon. The goal of that, let's say if you see a number like here pop up as 2,000. Well, we know 2,000 times 100, that's like 200,000 shares, right? So that's a big ask to throw up. What that essentially does, the goal for that is that's essentially to spook buyers, and drive price down, because this is data that's shown to traders, and I'm not, if I'm seeing that, I'm not going to be a buyer. If I see 200,000 shares on the ask, I'm not going to bother trying to buy 1,000 shares, because the likelihood of 200,000 shares getting eaten through is a little bit unlikely. But that's more or less the goal of spoofing, is just to throw up fake orders on the level 2 and see if either side can get spooked. So I'm actually going to go to an example here on CLBS, what I mean by that. So we'll go to, right, is it? Where is it? Speed this up just a little bit, see if it'll show up here. Don't know if anybody, I'm going to see if I can pause it real fast. Okay, so everybody see this huge number up here? This is kind of when I start paying special attention to the tape. Because when you have a big number up, either side that pops up here, this is most likely spoofing. And the real way to tell if it's spoofing or not is to actually watch the tape and see if these orders are getting filled. So what we'll want to see is if you see 238 orders getting filled on the tape, we want to see this number starting to get chipped, or this number, whatever level 2 that you're using. So I'm going to let this play out and see if I can pause it at certain times. So what we're going to see is we're seeing a lot of selling into the bid. You'll start to see at times this bid is getting chipped, and that's essentially because you're not really having buyers step up to take this ask. That's a big ask. You need big buyers essentially stepping in to take this. So when I'm watching this, and I missed this trade, but I was watching it, what I'm specifically looking for here is either one, to see if this is a real ask. And the way, again, to do that is by watching the tape, seeing if 238 orders are coming through, and if they are coming through and this is getting eaten, then essentially what I'm watching for is bidders to continue to step up. That's going to add bid support. And then essentially this number to keep coming down. And I'm watching for those big orders to come through as this number decreases. And as I'm watching for this number to decreases, I'm looking to play a breakout into that strength. So let's say I see this 238 getting eaten. Essentially this number is coming down very rapidly. I'm seeing orders get filled. I might be slapping some shares in order to just play the breakout momentum. Because what we'll see is if this is really a big short that's trying to get filled here, then they're going to be forced to cover. And what you also see is you see buyers see this big wall getting eaten. They're going to be slapping this up, and then you essentially get a surge in momentum. Spoiler alert, that is what happens, but we'll kind of just keep watching through this. I'll play it on fast to see if we can kind of see what happens. So we're watching the tape. Okay, so it is a little bit fast. I'm actually going to play this a little bit slower. Okay, again, we're watching for 238 orders. These are all midpoint fills, so this is just market buying, market selling. Okay, we're seeing 238 orders come through here, but we're really not seeing this number come down.
All right, I'm naked. What'd I miss?
I might have to speed it up. I don't exactly remember. So again, this is kind of what you see here. We're seeing a lot of lack of buyer strength stepping up. So what we're seeing here is actually this bid. We saw a decent sized bid in there, but we're seeing all this 237 selling. On the tape, we're seeing selling into the bid. There's really not a lot of buyers stepping up. So at the time, this appears to be weak, right? But because it is such a huge ask, I personally like to keep my eyes on this. And I did basically either until it broke down or until it broke out. I want to get to the actual breakout. Let's see if I can. All right, bear with me, y'all. One thing I do want to point out is what you'll see here, what you saw there was better bid support at 236. So we're kind of seeing price get pinned, and we can actually watch how big these walls are. Watch the tape, see where the actual orders are flowing through, if they're getting sold into the bid, if they're buying on the ask. And just a side note real fast, I don't know how it is on every other broker, but on TOS, what you'll see typically is the green orders, that's typically your buys on the bid or on the ask, and your red orders are typically your sells, into your bid. And that visually, just kind of like out of the corner of your eye, if you see the tape painted green, that kind of gives you a sense of direction.
Yeah. For sure. Just do it right now.
Start skipping through minutes here. Oh, shit. That is the only issue with TOS on demand, is it's just super. All right, well, it's getting close. Hang out for a minute, and then we'll move on. But what I want to show you is, what you'll see is that this ask actually does start to get smaller and smaller. So we saw this like big number was 1,800. We saw some buys come through, and I apologize, but the on-demand is like, it's super glitchy, and it's really laggy. But essentially, what you'll see on the tape is those 238s had huge orders come through. You start to see the number get chipped, and if you're fast enough, you can buy into that momentum and ride that wave up. And we see that's when we get this huge spike. Callum, we're watching CLVS. But that's why big orders on your level 2, that's one of the things that like I'll really pay attention to. What you'll see sometimes, that big order, what you'll see is spoofing or flashing an order, is you'll see that 1,800 pop up and then all of a sudden disappear. So that's something to be aware of when we're seeing big orders. And again, the way to tell if it's real or not is if it's getting sold into, and you have to watch that by seeing the tape compared to the actual level 2. As far as hidden orders go, I don't have an example prepared for this, but what we'll start to see with hidden orders is, let's say we're starting to see like a small ask or a small bid, and we're seeing a lot of orders come through the tape at that number. Let's say we only have 200 shares on your ask. What you'll see is we'll see like maybe thousands of shares come through at 245. And let's say this only says like 2 at 245. There's a lot of hidden orders there getting filled. You have kind of an endless seller there. And what that typically does is it's bearish in a sense, because you're essentially having buyers that are trying to break invisible walls, and you essentially have people just give up and then flip biases. So that's one more thing to be aware of. Then the last was refreshing orders. So let's say we start to see this 245, get taken. We're seeing the orders come through at 245. We see it, this number get really small, let's say down to like 10, and all of a sudden you see this then flash back up to like a couple hundred. Essentially, again, you have another hidden seller there that's kind of just has like, for lack of a better term, an infinite amount of shares being sold. And again, you're going to have buyers who are anticipating a further breakout of this level, give up and flip biases. And that's one thing to be aware of when watching your level 2, is you want to make sure that when you're seeing those orders come through the tape, that your level 2 is, acting, the way it should. Meaning if you see 31,300 shares go through the tape, and this is kind of comes with screen time, where you kind of get that that sixth sense. You want to see those orders or that level 2 actually get chipped and then move on to your next cent up. Does that make sense to everybody? I know it's a little bit weird to see kind of not happening, but if anybody's got any questions, I'd love to answer them. I know it's very confusing, or it can be. But those are the three things that, you want to look for, on level 2 as far as the manipulation of level 2 is spoofing, which are typically done through big orders. Hidden orders, when you essentially see small bids or small asks and you see a lot of orders go through the tape, but you're level 2, not really moving. You're essentially having orders getting routed through in like a hidden manner. And that essentially, should have you flip your bias. Not always, but typically you'll have buyers or sellers give up because price is not moving in the direction that they want. And then refreshing orders, basically when you're seeing a bid wall or an ask wall get chipped, but then all of those orders come back.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think something that I've always kind of struggled with is like I predominantly use Webull, and they're level 2 even with the NASDAQ like $2 a month, whatever. They do not always show what's actually going on there. So if you look at like the time in sales, you'll like see a wall in level 2, and then there's something going on, like let's say like 2 cents lower, somebody's buying the fuck out of it. You swap over to like TDA, or recently I've gotten into Moo just to like have that transparency that I'm trying out. One of the things I think I'm like always trying to figure out is where is this that it's just shorts covering or shorts are setting up? And is that anything you can elaborate on or offer insight?
To be honest, I am not as experienced to, I guess, give you the differences between what you see on the tape between shorts covering and, big buyers coming in. So like this example we just did on CLVS with that, big sell. What that could have been was a big short, trying to fill a position, and really kind of hold that level. But then you have big buyers also step in, fill that position. You have other buyers step in, and now what you see is that big, we'll call it here a big short, which was at that 238 level. What you'll see is now that big short is forced to cover, and then that's kind of where you get this strong burst of momentum. As far as like the Webull level 2s, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that the $2 level 2 on Webull is just the NASDAQ routed orders. And I think on Webull you have to pay more for even like your full order book. I definitely recommend looking into brokers that do have, the full order book. I know, TradeStation has it, but I think you might have to pay like $60 a month. TDA, this is all free. So if level 2 data is something that you think is going to help you, I definitely recommend getting on a broker that's going to provide, this data for you. Would be my recommendation.
Yeah, $10 a month.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a
bid offer. It's the NBBO, and that will give you the full order.
I think I pay like 70 at TradeStation.
Cool. Yeah, and this is why I like TDA, because really compared to Webull and TradeStation, again, this is all free. Every broker is going to be a little bit different, but, again, if you want that level 2 data, this type of data, get on a broker that's going to provide that, is my strongest recommendation.
Yeah, especially if you're typically a after-hours pre-market kind of trader, right? That's where like the information really comes in. I've noticed. Webull, they just started recently offering that like 16 different brokers for like $10 a month, whatever, and that might be something I swap over just for peace of mind and sanity.
Yeah, definitely. Callum, yeah, go ahead, man.
Depending how much volume do you trade, whoever asked that question, I'm pretty sure some brokers actually waive the fees for your level 2. I know on Interactive Broker, you might want to look into that, because I know for there you definitely get a full book on there. But yeah, as far as I know, Feeman, that $2 one on Weeble's quite crap, pardon my language, but yeah, it's very different to the full book, like you say. So either explore getting that full package, or like Justin said, just venture out, because there's enough brokers that provide it. So you just got to look about. I'm sure people in here can help. Which ones?
Yeah, definitely, man. It's I tend to try to pick up positions after market open or close or whatever, and so trying to figure out like where that offer is at or whatever when a chart looks really good.
Yeah, and the thing with you have to keep in mind with extended hours is, you know, a lot of what you actually see on level 2s, this is also algorithmic, buys and sells. And that liquidity is not there during extended hours, which is why what you'll see during extended hours is a lot thinner level 2, meaning like, I don't know, let me pop onto this in extended hours. We'll go to...
I've got a good recent example for you if you're curious.
See what this looks like real fast. Yeah, so like what we'll see here is like, you look at this in extended hours, you got some bids on your 178, but then you don't have anything down to 172. Same thing on your ask side. So it's definitely, it's lower liquidity. That's what, extended hours typically are. Let's see what else. So that's more or less just kind of like the basics of level 2, kind of things to look for, how to read it. Again, it's one of those things that you have to kind of constantly be watching to kind of get that feel. The one thing that I'll say about this is when you're watching really low float tickers, I don't know, does anybody have an example of a super low float from last week? I can't even think of any off the top of my head. FFIE, if you're looking at this from, not even that one. Essentially what you'll see with low floats is because low floats typically also do have, since there aren't as many shares exchanged, you'll also see that the level 2 isn't, I guess, as thick, and it doesn't take many shares to move price. So you'll see that, like, you'll see a level 2 that has, really small amounts of shares on your bids and your asks, and it really does move too rapidly where it's, I wouldn't say it's impossible to read, because there can be good information, popping up on there. But just keep in mind that, like, what I personally like to trade are these a little bit thicker tickers, like CLVS, where they do have a level 2 where you can kind of, be able to read kind of like what's happening and gauge that momentum. Let me see what Chris said. Chris, so like I'll actually go over like how I use level 2 here pretty shortly, but yeah, I think level 2 is definitely a big tool in my day-to-day trading, and I'll kind of go over why. It's helped me kind of give confluence to like my entries, and kind of give me confidence that I'm entering and I can almost be green in my position right away. And I'll go into that a little bit more depth here pretty shortly. Yeah, Callum mentioned Grove, so let's look at this from, I think it was running Thursday. I have some trades that, are some good examples of like kind of day-to-day stuff that I trade. So if we're looking at this level 2 here on Grove, I mean, one, you have a big spread, right? So you don't have really anything, for 4 cents between your bid and your asks. And then again, if you look at these level 2, sometimes, you know, below 597, you know, there's not another bid there for 5 cents. And really, these aren't that many shares. So this is what I'm saying. Like with these low floats, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take many shares to move price, and that's why you see these move violently, is because these orders can get filled, you know, with people, you know, like me or you that just have the capital to move, you know, to basically take, like if I went short here 200 shares of this, you know, I'm moving the stock down on the bid, you know, 2 cents, you know, from this current moment, assuming there's no hidden orders or anything like that. But if there's no more questions regarding that stuff, let me, I'm going to start to kind of go over like what my strategy is, and just a quick overview of how I've been trading the past couple months. My strategy is more of, I guess, a high frequency type scalping strategy. It's similar to snacks. However, I don't play the pennies. I like to, you know, play anything from like about $1 to like $7. I like to play things that are typically in a 1 cent spread and typically have a little bit thicker float. And what that does is I can read that level 2 a little bit better. It's not thin, so I can kind of watch bids and asks get chipped. I'm typically kind of changing up my basket of tickers that I like to scalp daily. I like, you know, the easy to borrow stocks, because then I can also play the short side. You know, some of these tend to move with respect to the overall market, you know, big momentum shifts in the market. I can catch either a nice long side move or a short side move. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm watching these bids and these big bids and these big asks to get chipped, and I'm really just riding the momentum of that stock until basically that momentum changes. So I'm really right now an all in, all out kind of scalper. I guess kind of warning that I would give to a strategy like this is, you know, like I said, it is high frequency, so it is a lot of trades. I'm not looking to catch huge moves. I'm looking to basically capitalize on very short-term burst momentum with very high volume, and I'm just looking to do that over and over. And I'm looking basically just for those small base hit wins to add up. Again, I like to play these with a basket of stocks, like I said. I can kind of go over some of the ones that I have been playing, but I also like to play the daily gappers that are kind of, you know, fit that criteria, that are like in that $2 to $5 range, have a 1 cent spread. And the reason I like to do that is because what we'll see is those typically have a lot more volume and range, and therefore I can actually catch a little bit bigger moves and I'm not having to worry about penny flipping. It really isn't for anybody that's under PDT, because it does require a lot of trades. But, you know, if you're over PDT and have the capital and are willing to make a lot of trades, you know, it's a type of strategy that you can either use as like a wallet pattern. You can kind of use it with your main strategy and like maybe make an extra couple $100 here and there. So I'm going to actually flick to a couple, you know, random trades that I've done in the past few weeks, and I'll kind of show you more or less what I was looking at. And then again, feel free to ask any questions as they come up.
Do your trades have large talons?
Sorry, what?
I'm just fucking around. I was asking if your trades have large talons.
Talons? So here's an example of CLVS. So I was actually watching. So what I'll do actually between the trades that I take is I like to play breakouts, and I'm, all of these I'm watching level 2. I'm watching for basically shifts in momentum on the tape in the level 2 to take quick bursts of momentum. So I'm basically playing flags, support resistance, wedges, but I'm doing all of this while watching level 2, and that gives me the confidence to essentially enter a trade and know that I can enter the trade and almost be green immediately, and that's the way that I like to trade. I like to enter the trade and be green, fairly quickly. I don't really have the patience to wait, and that's just the type of trader I am. I believe. Let's see. So I took this trade. Essentially, we were kind of flagging here. I knew that there was a potential to break over this $2 level, and I knew, essentially, I am still using all of our, very general price action, patterns, but again, I'm just playing for the short scalps while watching level 2. So I'm actually watching this 195, and what I can see here is that 195 is getting chipped. I'm adding, right? So I added that 195 knowing that, watching the tape, I could be green almost immediately. And the way that I manage my risk on this is if I see the tape going against me and I see the cent below me starting to break, I'm selling out of my position because I know that I can always re-enter. And again, that's why this is high frequency, because there's a lot of scratch trades. But the one benefit to this is that you can enter trades almost immediately, get green almost immediately, take your profits quickly, and you can manage your risk. And that's why I really like this strategy. So what I'm seeing here is, all right, this 196 is now getting chipped. I see plenty of support on 195. I'm watching the tape. There's still plenty of momentum coming to 196. Now I'm still watching. 198's getting chipped. 197. See, and what I'm doing is I'm essentially just watching this momentum. I'm still getting walked up. We're seeing this burst of momentum. So it looks like 199 is about to break. Look at this, 199. There's some support here. 2 is looking a little bit strong, but I'm still watching it because what I'll start to see is, all right. So I pause it here. What I'm seeing is, all right, $2. This is a pretty big wall compared to 199. If I see this get to be a lot bigger and I start to see this 199 getting sold into, I'm out. That's a 4-cent win right there. I think I played this with 4,000 shares, but what I'm essentially doing is I'm just riding this wave of momentum. I'll exit the position as soon as I see weakness. So I'll kind of let it continue to play out. I don't see that 199 getting sold into, but look, 2 is now starting to get chipped. So I'm still in. I've got my finger on the button ready to sell if I need to. 2 is still getting chipped. 199 is still holding strong through 2. I'm still holding because I don't see a reason to sell yet. Okay. I'm still holding this position. I see 204. I think 205 comes. So at this point, I'm actually still holding this position. I haven't sold any of my shares yet, but I start to see it kind of start to go against me. And this is kind of just a matter of it being a little bit slower. This is where I actually started to sell because now I start to see a change in momentum. Once I start to see that change in momentum, I'm out. So this is actually where I sold. I took this trade. I think it was just 8 cents. I mean, people take 10, 20 cent trade, plus all day long. But again, I'm not in, right now the business of holding for larger moves. I'd rather just take the small moves with size that I know I can control my risk, and I'm just riding the wave of momentum. So I took this trade. It was 8.5 cents, and the reason you have that half cent is I'm always just market buying and market selling, and that's because you can get filled at a midpoint price. And this was a $340 win, just from here to here. And that's essentially the goal of my trading recently. Just take these small little moves with size over and over again, and it's going to add up. I mentioned before that I like to kind of have a basket of tickers that I like to trade daily. And let's go through, this was a nice trade I took earlier last month. And I'll go through that basket here pretty shortly. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to throw up buy here. I think that's what happened with this. If it'll load. Oh, actually, I remember what happened. This wasn't a SPY trade. Essentially what happened, this was actually a basket, one of the tickers that I like to trade based off of the uranium index. It's a uranium ticker. So I actually was watching the URA ETF, which is what this follows. And see, I went short. I saw this 438 kind of get to be a little bit strong, or this might not be the right one. Okay, I saw this 438 to start to break down. I went short because look how strong this 439 is. I don't know why the tape doesn't show up sometimes. I'm seeing this 439 stay strong, 438 starting to break down. This is actually an easy to borrow, or it was easy to borrow at the time on TOS. So I'm in short about 4,000 shares, and it just knifed down. But then as soon as I see that momentum start to change, that's when I'm out. So my entry on this was 438. So I was writing this down. I could have taken profits here, but I wanted to hold it a little bit longer just to see if I can get more. But as soon as that momentum started to change, I'm out. So I didn't sell at the bottom. I sold or covered right here. So, quick 7-cent move with size is a $280 win. And that's all just from watching this level 2 and the tape and the momentum. I don't even really remember what happened. I think it continued to fall afterwards, but that's the type of trading that I've been doing. In and out, in and out. It's tedious. It is a lot of trades, but even if you're only doing this with 1,000 shares and you can catch 5 or 6 cent moves, a few times a day, that's an extra couple $100. And again, it's really easy to control that risk because if you're in a position and you see, the tape starting to move the other way, you can just exit the position for break even or a small loss. And one of the reasons that I like using TOS is because, again, I'm typically just market buying, market selling, and what we'll see is, hey Dale, you mind muting your mic for me? What we're typically seeing is I like to get these midpoint fills, so basically fill between the cent, because I'm not sitting on the bid waiting to get filled if I want to go long, because if I'm trying to get a burst of momentum, I'm not going to get filled here. And I could slap to the ask, but if I have a chance to market buy and get filled in between, the 2 cents, one, that's going to lower my cost basis and lower my risk as well. And TOS usually has, pretty good fills with that. So that's more or less, my strategy. I like to play flags using this strategy. I like to buy off support resistance, or buy off support. I like to play off SPY, but it's all while watching level 2. I pay attention to those big walls on your bids and asks, because that's one of those things where it's like, if those suddenly disappear or those start to get eaten or chewed through or whatever, that's when you'll get that quick burst of momentum for a quick scalp. And with size, that's a really quick trade to make, that kind of money. So that's really the ultimate goal of the strategy, that I've been doing. But, I think if you can start adding level 2 into your strategies, whether it be adding off trend lines, off the EMAs, what you can do is watch that level 2, watch the tape, and that way you're not buying when you're seeing a big ask, kind of putting pressure on the stock. Because what you'll see is if you have a big ask kind of getting walked down, if you're buying, let's say if you're a 9 EMA buyer, but you're seeing that big ask there, maybe that's not the best time to buy. So it kind of gives you that extra piece of information. Sorry, it gives you that extra piece of information, whether or not the timing of your entry is right. And, and that all depends on the type of trader you are. Like I said, I'm the type of trader where I like to be in the green almost immediately. And by watching the level 2 in the tape, it gives me that extra piece of information that I can pretty much enter a stock and be green pretty quickly. That's about all I got. Does anybody have any questions? Or I know Snacks and Perch are in here. They're similar type traders. I don't know if there's anything that they want to add, but that's it for me as far as level 2 goes, tape reading. I know it's a little bit difficult to show on demand. Feel free to, ask me during the trading sessions. I can hop on screen share if you want for a little bit during the actual session sometime this week, if anybody's interested in that. Kind of some things that I'm looking for. But if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask.
I think the same principles could even work for anybody with below PDT. You would just be limited to how many trades you can take.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess more or less what I was talking about as far as being under PDT is like the particular high frequency of it. If you're under PDT, you're not necessarily going to have the trades available or the capital available to constantly be in and out. But it still is something that even if you're like, let's say you're a flag trader, flags are very momentum based. So if I was actually watching this 1 minute flag over here and I wanted a flag break, I might be looking for this. This is a 430 level. I might be watching your level 2 down here, 430. I might be waiting to see if this gets chipped, and then I'm buying on that break. It's something you got to be very fast about, and speed and trading sometimes is an edge, and it helps having a good platform where you can enter trades in, quickly. But like I said, if you're a flag trader, and you only take one trade a day, and let's say you take it with your full account, if you're under PDT, maybe this is not a bad trade to enter. Like, let's say you enter with 2,000 shares here, and 2,000 shares, and you ride this up 9 cents. That's $180, to your account right there. If you're trading with like a, 10K account. And you can, again, I'm the all in, all out type scalper. So, you could even, trail this, you don't have to be all in, all out. You could take half your position off, trail your remaining stop, etc. But that's more or less how you can use that level 2 as a tool to kind of help gauge whether or not you're possibly entering at the right time. Don't use it as the end-all be-all, because like I mentioned before, we see that there are times when that level 2 gets manipulated a little bit, and it's not always your best gauge of momentum, but it can help you add to a thesis, especially if you're already looking to enter at particular areas. Watch the level 2 and the tape around that area. See if it's see if your ask is super heavy. See if your bid's super thin, and then that might save you from entering before an actual shift in momentum occurs. Any other questions? You